What's up, friends? Jason Lengstorf here, and I am super excited to bring you a brand new series that I'm calling 4 Web Devs, 1 App Idea. In every episode, we're going to bring 4 web developers together, all of whom get the same app prompt, and we have to go build our own version of it. The prompt today is a productivity tracker that is not a to-do app. Salma Alam-Naylor, Scott Tolinski, and Porcello all showed up along with me to build our own versions of this app. I am so excited to show you what we built. Huge thanks to Clerk, who stepped in and sponsored this series to make it possible. So without any further ado, let's jump right into the first build.
My app is called Find Something to Do. Want to procrastinate and look productive? Now, this isn't your traditional to-do app tracker thing. You can submit to-dos for other people to do, and you cannot do your own to-dos. I decided to use Astro as the web framework. Usually, I try to opt for plain JavaScript, HTML, CSS as much as possible, but React was actually quite useful in this case. So on the index, you can browse the latest 9 to-dos. It was a bit of an arbitrary number, but without being signed in, that's what you can see. The index page encourages you to browse or add a to-do. Now, in order to do that, you need to sign in. So for signing in, I used Clerk. And what I really liked about Clerk was the fact that it came with a plain JavaScript implementation. I didn't want to wrap a whole provider around my app and make it a full React app. So I used the plain JavaScript Clerk sign-in component, and I was able to configure that quite nicely with CSS actually as well. The to-dos component takes all of the to-dos, and then we get the user ID from the session and we filter the to-dos that way. Ideally, I would have liked to have done it all on the server, but being client-side authentication, that wasn't possible. But I kind of got around it. When we add a to-do, it takes a single input field, but I needed to add a hidden input as well for the user ID in order to send that to the server to add the to-do to the database so that a user ID was attached to each to-do so that we could filter those out on the browse page. Each to-do is its own React component. I needed a bit of state management in terms of whether the button was disabled after you did it and whether it was loading as it was being done. So that was quite a nice way to implement that without plain JavaScript. With regards to CSS and the styling of the app, I'm just using plain CSS, and some of it had to be global in Astro given that it was applied to components after the page was rendered on the server and returned, but it's pretty standard CSS. I didn't even have a system. Sometimes I was just styling HTML element tags because why not? Chaos. But every time you complete a to-do, it returns a nice random yay from this array and changes the button text for a little bit more fun and chaos. Other than that, that's my app.
This one is called Find Something to Do.
Want to procrastinate and look productive? This is everything I want. Salma, you know me so well.
Of course I do, obviously. Let me go ahead and sign in. We're going to sign in with GitHub.
What's something you would like to do? I would like to work out for 2 hours. And then if I click add to do.
Amazing. So happy to hear that it'll be done by someone else. That makes me feel much better.
I only see other people's to-dos.
Eat some eggs. I did do that today. That one counts, right?
I'm going to eat a burger. I did this. Fantastic. Love that positive praise, right?
Like, I want to go for a walk.
Also, one thing I love about this app is the colors, the text, the emoji plant. This looks great. Let's zoom in on that little squiggly. Look at that. It's got some character. It's not just like it's not a perfectly round squiggly. It's like a flat squiggly.
This is really going to help me. I feel like all I want to do is put lists together because it makes you feel like you're working. And if I don't have to do the things, then that's even better.
It makes me want to go troll a bunch of strangers by putting in a bunch of bad ideas that I want them to go and do. Let's go look at the code.
Built with Clerk, Astro, MongoDB, Atlas. Okay.
Oh, dang. Salma went all out. Look at this. There's social sharing cards and Jesus.
This is not a technique that I've personally used, but I know a lot of people really like CSS modules. But you have a CSS file and you import that and then you can use it as styles.yourclass.
Rather than like reinventing this wheel, and I see we're using Mongo here, having to do another call to get Mongo, just importing this get and loading the data right there. That's clever. That was a clever move. Awesome work, Salma. This is great.
I wanted to make a box breathing app. Box breathing is a type of breathing you do where you breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, and then hold for 4 seconds. Now, I wanted to make an app that what it does is it tracks those breathing cycles, and I'm going to do so using the microphone. Now, one cool thing about this application is that we're working with audio, so we request the device permissions to get all of the microphones, throw them into a select list, let the user pick which microphone they're going to have. From there, we pipe that into a really neat component. That's the audio frame component if you're looking at this repo. This component is responsible for much of the application. One thing that this does is it outputs a visualizer for the volume of the microphone. I even had to do some logarithmic math in here because, well, audio is kind of weird like that. The cool thing about this is that this visualizer actually goes one-to-one with a range selector in HTML. That way the user can give themselves their own threshold, so when they're breathing into the mic, that we're making sure that they can control that volume level. Now, there's a small little tidbit in here as well where we're constantly calculating the average volume. 10 times a second or 20 times a second or something like that. We're calculating the average volume of the microphone. That allows us to do a comparison. If the dynamic value is greater than the threshold set value, we're able to increment how long you've either been breathing or exhaling. And this is active action determines if it's an inhale exhale, which are active actions, or a hold or a wait, which are not active actions. That allows us to tailor instructions to the user to tell them, hey, you're doing a great job, or breathe with your mouth near the microphone. So every single second, if their average volume is above the threshold, we get to move to the next step and then reset the counter. So check it out. Peace.
Are you ready to breathe? I totally am.
Always love a bit of breathing. I don't want to give you my phone number. Why do you need my phone number to let me breathe?
Sign up, log in. I'm going to sign up. Dang, Scott went all out on this with the verification email and everything. That's cool.
Oh, nice. Using the microphone. That's cool.
It's asking for access to my microphone.
Oh, this is awesome.
A round is one set of inhale, hold, exhale, wait. I'm just going to try one round.
Check, check. Drag the slider to a level you can maintain while inhaling or exhaling. Okay.
It's recording. I'm still being recorded. I feel okay about that.
You'll do great, thank you. Inhale. Thank you for being proud of me.
Blown away that we pulled the mic in. Like, what a clever use of technology there to actually tie breathing into a web app.
Good old package, JSON. Oh, so we got Svelte and TypeScript and Vite and Clerk. Source, roots. I don't understand this new Svelte kit with the pluses.
Oh, nice. We're setting a variable up here, and then that updates the layout based on what people do. Got it. This is so clean that you just get to define it like that. You're not dealing with like a set state or anything, and it just works.
I do like this status. This status is very cute and useful, actually.
Real math in here. Feeling outclassed by everybody here. These apps are so good. This is how we're loading the audio. We get the selected device. If there's an audio context, it gets closed. They create a new one and then creates a media stream. The analyzer comes out of the same audio context. Okay. And I played with this a little bit, and this stuff is super cool.
So what a cool app. I think it's good stuff. I'm going to close this.
Scott, awesome job here. I love that you pulled in hardware. This is great.
Now, Balanced Citizen is an app that you can use to track all of your activities for a 24-hour day. So we've broken things down into 3 different buckets: working, striving, and thriving. And all of these are going to be containers that ideally should be balanced for the day. So you'll be able to add new activities, and then those will pop up at the bottom. To build this little app, I've used Clerk to handle all of my authentication. That is something that I never want to set up ever, so Clerk has made that much easier on me. I also have chosen Supabase as my database, and I'm using the Next.js 13 app router to stand up my project. Because we are working on this React application, Clerk has given us all of these great React components that we can use to seamlessly get our authentication information here into our app. So we have the Clerk provider that's going to pass down all of those details to my component tree. And within this, I have these different components that we're going going to see here in our main page file. So this page file, we want to think about these components as displaying information based on whether a user is authenticated or not. So we have the signed out component. This will show different links for registering and for logging in. And then we have the signed in component. The signed in component is going to handle all of the components that should be shown to authenticated users. So that includes our form that's going to collect that data, as well as those 3 boxes to display the data. We're also passing down the data to the balance board, which is the little table that gives details about each one of those activities and their category. So how is the data coming in? The way that I did that here is we're using the create server component client. That's going to go grab the data from Supabase. And then we do all these little transformations to it. We total it up, and then we really display it over here in our components folder, in our balance board. So this is just going to iterate through that data. Now with the form, I'm using a client-side form using the use client directive there, but we're actually using a Next.js server action, which they say is risky and experimental, but we're going to go with it. And this is going to pass all of those details to our server. And this is another case where we're integrating with Supabase to make that possible. So hopefully this gives you a little application to start to balance out your days. Sometimes it can feel easy to get bogged down in one of these buckets more than others. So hopefully this will get you started on the right foot every day. Make sure to put sleep in as one of those activities because that's obviously pretty important. So thanks everybody. Appreciate your time.
Find more balance. Well, this sounds nice, doesn't it? I want to be a balanced citizen. I'm going to sign up.
And I'm going to continue with GitHub, right? Okay, so working, striving, and thriving. Starting with what we need. We need 8 hours of sleep. So let's go to 8 hours of sleep. We submit.
It tracks your whole 24 hours. It's feeling nice not to just have a to-do app that is just for boring work things to do.
I have 16 hours used, 8 hours left. I got to put in my workday in here, 6 hours. I'm going to be slanging code. There I am. I'm slanging code for 6 hours. I got 2 hours left to who knows what.
Okay, then I'm going to go to the sauna, and that's for thriving. It's 2 hours. What I like about this is that it starts to show, like, we think we got time for a lot of stuff, but when you actually start adding in the things you got to do, those hours disappear in a big hurry.
But that's fun.
Let's check out the code. She's working with Next.js. How can I tell? We got a little next.config right here.
We get into lots of components. I like components. It's been a while since I've used Supabase, actually, so this is exciting to see.
What I like about this is that Eve hasn't tried to over-engineer anything. Maybe I did. I like it.
Let me tell you, I build my own auth systems over and over again, and I would absolutely love to do import sign in from Clerk Next.js. That's really nice that you get to do that. Styles, we just have a global CSS with some CSS vars in there and just straight up React.
I also love that .reset. I feel like that's a thing that I should have known existed that I am just learning today is a thing, and that's real irritating because I've definitely done this the hard way more than once.
You cannot contest. This is a beautiful app.
Love it.
Great job, Eve. This is awesome. I like to come up with reasons to keep preparing instead of doing the thing, and this has been a consistent challenge for me. So my app is my attempt to stop myself from doing that. Astro is my framework. I used Clerk for the auth, and then I used Neon as my database solution. I used Astro's SSR mode and tried to do just about everything on the server side instead of doing it on the client side. And so there were a couple things where I needed client-side JS, but for the most part, this app, it runs without JS. On my index page here, we have some auth utils, and then on the layout, which wraps actually every page on the site, we're also loading this client-side auth script. So the client-side auth script is pulling in the Clerk.js SDK, and then we run this clerk.load. And the reason we need that is that once you've authenticated with Clerk, it sends you back to your site with some session information that needs to be stored into cookies. And the other thing that I'm doing here is I'm updating the UI based on whether or not you're logged in. This was kind of a hack on my part, but what I found was if I sent somebody to this page and then I let them sit for just under a second, it caused all of the clerk things to update and my cookies and everything to be set so that when you load the homepage again, it shows you your user instead of showing you the login again and making you refresh. This is what it is. The way that this works is you have to grab the session, and then we need to make sure that the session is valid, which we do through all of this. And then we either get the user details or we return false, which lets us be confident that we have a valid user login. And this is all done on the server side. I was really excited about Neon because look at this. I set up Neon. It took me 20 lines of code to do all the database stuff that I needed for this site. So you get a database URL from Neon. It's a serverless Postgres. I was really excited about that. Then you just build out these things. And honestly, these were like convenience queries for me, but we just run a db.query. You pass in the SQL query and then any values so that you can escape that user input. And then you just either return the rows, or in my case, I wanted to be able to query one. So just do the rows.at, which is a relatively new addition to JavaScript so that you can get something at whatever index. So the 0th index of this rows array. And that means that on pages like these, like on the track page, I can load my settings, and then I can load all the entries where it's the current user and then make sure that it's like today, right? And that's how I check whether or not somebody's logged today. I get all of their entries, like everything that matches their name. And then I generate these consistency scores by just doing a little bit of math to figure out of the entries you've entered, what percentage of them were yeses. And that's what I'm calling the consistency score. This was a lot of fun to build. I really enjoyed digging into how do you use Postgres and Astro? How do you get Clerk to work when you're not using React? How do you do server side auth in a non-React environment? Because I don't always want to have to load a bunch of React just to build an app. So this is a fun learning exercise. Hopefully this app is useful for you. I'm really hoping it's going to be useful for me. I've been using it myself for the last few days. I'm very excited about that. Thanks, y'all.
JFDI? That's a bit aggressive, isn't it, Jason?
What is the action you want to take?
We're going to start. We're going to log in. We're going to authorize clerk.
Please hold. Okay, what is the action you want to take?
I would personally like to start growing my YouTube audience. So I'm going to say 1 YouTube video a week.
You said you wanted to go for at least a 30-minute walk every day. Did I do the thing? Yes or no?
One thing I love about this, it gives you a little blurb. It takes an average of 66 days to build a new habit. It lets you know that habit building does not happen overnight.
Productively procrastinating. I'm very guilty of that also. Our client is handling all this auth stuff, which is amazing.
Looks like just Astro. I love that you can co-locate things like database calls directly with your components. It's really back to this whole PHP idea that I think we're getting closer to, and I gotta love it.
Serverless Postgres. Okay, thank you. Nice elephants. That sounds fun. Neon. You are getting the user via cookies. So I didn't know you could probably do that. So that's good. I was using the session, the JWT, so that's taught me something.
One neat thing I do like is that he built all of his own Clerk components. And Clerk actually makes that somewhat easy, but it's interesting to see how he does it. Looks like he did a whole server-side implementation of it here, which makes this even more interesting to me considering I did like a drop-in iframe for mine.
Let's go to the track page. Writing some good old raw SQL. I mean, that is completely valid, and you don't see people do that these days. Give me that raw code any day. And you styled it with plain CSS, which I like. Thank you, Jason.
If you got something that you think would make a great episode of this show, drop your prompt ideas in the comments. Make sure that you like and subscribe and share this, because the more people who watch it, the more likely it is that we get to make more of these. Another huge thanks to Clerk for sponsoring this first video and making this series possible. Until next time, happy building.